In this video, the third video, we're going to look at Project B. We've already determined the net present value for Project B, 22,306. We calculated the profitability index. But now what we want to do is answer question 3 in the example. And that question asks what the payback for Project B is. For the payback, we just need the DCF column. So I'm going to rewrite the DCF column. The discounted cash flows for the time 0, negative $580,000. For the first year, even distributed throughout the first year, the present value of that was 144,318. Through the second year was 224,300. And for the third year, 233,688. So at time 0. During year 1, we used a 0.5 for that, but it went throughout the entire first year. Throughout the second year, we used 1.5 as our discount factor for time, but it's the second year. And then the third year, which we used 2.5 to discount that. So there's our years. So what we're asking here is cumulative. How much net present value do we have cumulatively? So at time 0, obviously we start off in the hole, negative 580. But the question is, at the end of the first year, have we gone positive yet? So we take $580,000 and we add the present value of the first year, plus 144,318. So how much do we have left? We're still negative. We're negative 435,682. So percent of the year used. Percent of the year used for year 1. We used 100% of year 1. So in the second year, we started the second year in the hole, 435,682. We add 224,300. So at the end of the second year, we still have a deficit of negative 211,382. So it's getting a little messy. But how much of the second year did we use? We used all of it, 100% of the second year. So then we come to the third year, where you can see at the beginning of the third year, we still have a deficit of 211,382, but in the third year, the present value in the third year is 233,688. So we're not going to use all of the third year. How much of the third year do we use? Well, for the third year, we're going to use the amount that we started off the year with, 211,382, divided by how much the entire third year was, the 233,688. And again, we don't need the negative sign here because we're just asking how much into the third year do we need to go before this negative 211 goes right to 0. That's essentially what the payback is. When in all of this timing does that 211 go from a negative net present value to a positive net present value? So 211,380 seconds of the third year's 233,688 is how much of that year it takes. And here, that gets you 90%. So we needed all of the first year, all of the second year, and 90% of the third year. So that gives us a payback of 2.9 years. Now if you go back to the paper, the quiz example, they said that Brittany has a cutoff period of 3 years, which means management will accept any projects that the payback period, the amount of time it takes before the net present value goes to 0, if as long as it's less than 3 years, management will accept it. Well, here you accept because the payback is 2.9 years, which is less than the 3 years, the 3-year cutoff. So for question number 3, your answer is 2.9 years, and it does meet the requirements, so this project would be acceptable. Right now we come to the more difficult part of this, which is question number 4, the internal rate of return. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to line up the cash flows for Project B. So if you look at Project B, you can see that the cash flows were negative 580, 149,630, 250, and 280. We use a discount rate of 7.5%, and when we did that, we got a positive net present value of 22,306. Well, what the IRR says is what rate do we need to use here in our discount factors? What number do we need to use such that this 22,306 goes exactly to 0? The higher this number, the smaller our discounted cash flows would be. Since our present value, net present value is positive, then obviously the internal rate of return is greater than 7.5%. So we need to try a higher number. So we're going to do the exact same exercise that we did in question A, but we're going to use different discount rates. And so let's try, since 7.5% is too low, let's try 9%. And so here we'll say that our discount factor with 9% is going to be obviously 1.000 for the first one, and then the discount factor here is 0.9578. How did I get that? Remember, we just take 1 divided by 1 plus the discount rate. In this case we're using 9%, raised at the time to the 0.5. On the second one, we get 0.8787. That's 1 divided by 1.1 plus 0.09 raised to the 1.5. And then for the third one, we get 0.8062. Our discounted cash flow in this case is we just multiply across, so negative 580. The present value here, so we take 149,630 times 0.9578, we get 143,316. And in here, we multiply in year 1.5, or year 2, which our factor is 1.5 for the year. 250,000 times 8.8787, we get 225,736. I'm sorry, I picked up the wrong number. 219,675. And for this last one, we take 280,000 times 0.8062, and we get 225,736. And our net present value, just like we calculated before, we just add this whole column up, and when you add the whole column up, you still get a positive 8727. So 9%, while it reduced our net present value from 22,306 down to 8727, it still did not get us to 0, so 9% must not be high enough. So we'll try this again, but this time let's try it with the discount factor. Let's try 11%. We'll try something higher, and that's the key, is that you know to go higher. So our factors now would be 1.000, and here when we take 1 divided by 1 plus 11% raised to the 0.5 time, we get 0.9492. Here when we raise 1 divided by 1.11 raised to the 1.5, we get 0.8551. Here when we raise it to the 2.5 time, we get 0.7704. Our discounted cash flows in this case are negative $580,000. 142,029, just multiplying across. 213,775 and 215,712. And we add all these together, and the net present value now is a negative 8484. So when we use 7.5%, we got an NPV of 22,306. When we use 9%, we got a net present value of 8727. These are both positive, and then when we went up to 11%, we got a net present value of negative 8484. So our IRR is between 9% and 11%. It's probably pretty close, right on 10%. I didn't try 10%. If I had, I would have gotten really close to 0. If the first number you try gets you right close to 0, you don't need to try more than twice. But on the exam, try at least 2 numbers. Unless you get it just perfectly right the first try, try at least twice. And since we know that our IRR is between 9% and 11%, we say we can accept the project because the IRR between 9% and 11% is definitely greater than our cost of capital of 7.5%. And so in that case, the project is acceptable. In this project, it was acceptable from net present value because it was positive. It was better than Project A. Project B was the better project because it has the higher net present value. Project B had a profitability index of 1.04. That's acceptable because it's greater than 1. Project B had a discounted payback of 2.9 years. That's also acceptable because it's greater than the cutoff period of 3.0 years that management gave us. And then the project's also acceptable, number 4, because the internal rate of return is between 9 and 11%, which is greater than the cost of capital of 7.5%. So that gets you through the entire problem. Thanks.